What's the most confusing thing in Five Nights at Freddy's? Is it the box? The shadows? The literal teleportation? I've seen this question thrown around a lot, and there's one answer that I see every single time. Midnight Motorist. The game's specifically designed to give us answers and tie up loose ends, somehow ended up creating one of the biggest mysteries of the entire franchise. There isn't a single aspect of Midnight Motorist that's agreed upon. Why is the car purple? Why is the man yellow? Why is the other man green? What's Junior's? Who's the chairperson? Who's the runaway? Who left the footprints? What's with the mound? Why is it called Later That Night in the files? Let's go over the most common answers to these questions. The theory that most YouTubers gravitate toward is that this minigame follows William after the murder of Charlotte, hence the rain in both minigames. He drives away, stops by a bar, isn't allowed in, goes home, talks to Michael, and discovers that his youngest son was lured to Freddy's by Shadow Freddy. It's a good theory, and it's one that I believed for a long time, but recently, I've been having some serious doubts. First of all, the rain probably means nothing, because it's also raining in Follow Me and the Pizzeria Simulator rare screens. But never mind that. Let's look at all the things that just plain don't make sense about this interpretation. Why would Scott make William yellow? If the intention was to show that he isn't literally purple, why not just give him William's skin color and some clothes? Why would Shadow Freddy specifically go to the crying child and lure him to Charlotte? And am I really meant to believe that this kid broke his window and followed a shadow into the woods? If I am meant to believe that, then it's too bad because I don't believe it. It feels like Scott's really been pushing against this interpretation too. William has a truck instead of a car in Help Wanted, and there's no reason for the truck to even be present there in the first place, unless it's trying to tell us something about William's vehicle driving habits or whatever. The sister location room is revealed to have a different layout than the Midnight Motorist one, and there's a lot of other stuff that I'll get into soon. I've recently come to a different conclusion that I think does a better job of explaining everything. Except the purple car. I won't be able to explain that. Just getting that out of the way beforehand. So, what do I think is going on in Midnight Motorist? Well, before I answer that, I want you to think about the context behind the minigame. This is one of 3 minigames required to get the Lore Keeper ending. The other 2 are Fruity Maze, where we learn the story of Susie, and Security Puppet, where we learn the story of Charlotte. Your reward for getting this ending? An illustration of 6 graves, belonging to William's victims. Gabriel, Fritz, Susie, Jeremy, Cassidy, and Charlotte. Do you see the connection? Both Fruity Maze and Security Puppet are about kids shown in the Lore Keeper ending screen. So what does this mean for Midnight Motorist? Well, it's about one of the other 4. This makes a lot of sense when you think about it. The child was lured away by a mascot. What event do we know of where a mascot lured children away? The missing children incident. The Ultimate Guide even calls this out as a theory, and Ultimate Custom Night backs it up.
I told him to come over later. That should be enough. And if he doesn't show up, I'll just go to his house. And if he doesn't open the door, I'll just find a window.
But wait,
I hear some of you saying.
it's raining. How did William wear a springlock suit in the rain?
To that, I answer, he didn't. This wasn't a springlock suit. It was a regular costume. That's what Scrap Trap is. He's a costume that William shoved in a hole covered with dirt, like he did with the Twisted animatronics in the Twisted ones. That's another connection that the Ultimate Guide calls out, by the way. Pizzeria Simulator, the same game that Midnight Motorist is from, shows us that Scrap Trap has almost no metal parts. and has suit feet with 3 toes. Springtrap didn't even have suit feet. Why bother giving him his feet back if it's not to tell us something? This also wouldn't be the only depiction we have of Spring Bonnie burrowing into the ground in order to stalk a child outside of the pizzeria. We see it in a more cartoony fashion in Fruity Maze. So, if the runaway is a missing child, which one is it? Well, we can knock off a few suspects easily. It can't be Susie or Charlotte, because we already have their backstories. It also can't be Cassidy, because the runaway is a boy. That leaves us with Gabriel, Fritz, and Jeremy. Well, there's also Andrew from the Fazbear Frights. But he's not in the gravestone ending, and he says he's never had anyone to talk to, despite the chairperson being sympathetic to the runaway. So he's pretty easy to rule out too. So Gabriel, Fritz, and Jeremy. There isn't any evidence against any of these 3, but there's only one character that we can point out specific evidence towards. In the scrapped Fazbear Fright story, You're the Band, a boy named Timmy is given the head of Freddy Fazbear. When he puts it on, he gets possessed by Gabriel. After a few days, a shadowy figure lures Timmy out of his window and leads him to Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. Does that sound familiar? Well, it's not the only time we see something like this. In the pizza party level of Help Wanted, we play as Gabriel, who starts out in a bedroom and is led to the pizzeria, where he gets stuffed into Freddy and is forced to perform. With all that in mind, here's what I think is the full story behind Midnight Motorist. Gabriel is living in the middle of nowhere with an abusive father. He often sneaks out to Freddy Fazbear's Pizza to find comfort. He becomes friends with Spring Bonnie, aka William. Eventually, his friend plans a birthday party. When Gabriel doesn't show up, William gets in the scrap trap suit and goes to his house. He can't just knock on the door, because Gabriel's grandfather, or some other elderly family member, is there. So instead, he finds Gabriel's window and lures him out. Gabriel follows William to Freddy's and, well, you know how it goes. Gabriel's dad comes home in a bad mood, only to find that Gabriel is gone. He gets angry, saying that Gabriel will be sorry when he gets home, unaware that Gabriel will never be coming home again. I know this answer is contrived, especially the part about Scrap Trap. But what answer isn't? There's a reason this minigame is so heavily debated. But until the day comes where we get the real answer, this is what I'm going with.